No other subject creates more polite conversation than the weather. It dictates what we wear, how we feel. For instance, it's sunny today and I always feel very energetic and enthusiastic whenever the sun's out. So it's really important that we have a reliable weather forecast. But do we get it? Well, let's go and find out.
Around Australia today, some showers are forecast in Perth, around 24 degrees. Also a little bit of cloud in the southeast.
No doubt many of us can recall a time when the weather didn't turn out the way it was forecast. But believe it or not, weather predictions have improved since the early days, when Australia's first meteorologists began monitoring our weather. And the best place to see the history of forecasting is at the National Meteorological Centre Museum. The science of weather analysis has been around since about the 1850s. Now, a lot of this equipment looks fairly archaic, but in those days, it was actually cutting-edge technology. Have a look at this old sunshine recorder. This is really interesting. The sun would come down through this crystal sphere and actually burn a track into this card, and that would dictate how many sunlight hours there'd been. They also have an old barograph and a self-recording rain gauge, and have a look at this beautiful Fitzroy barometer from around the 1860s. The past decade has brought amazing advancements in weather forecasting. Today, satellites buzz around the world, beaming the latest information on changing weather conditions to centres across the country. Chris Ryan's been with the Bureau for close to 20 years and is now in charge of its services area. He knows that even with all this new technology, there'll always be plenty of sceptics.
People remember the times when we're wrong. When we're right, it passes without notice. But everybody has an anecdote about how their picnic was ruined, their wedding got rained on, their whatever happened because the forecast was not what they expected.
Do the weather forecasters cop a bit of a ribbing because of that?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, do they tell people what they do when they go to dinner parties?
Some do, some don't. I always did, and I found that it's a bit of a ritual. Like, everybody loves to talk about the weather, and everybody loves to get stuck into the forecasters. We're in the Forecasting News Centre. Every hour of every day there's a river of information flowing into here and the forecasters are piecing it all together. We've got all sorts of different types. We've got satellite information covering the whole country. We can see the southeast of the continent there. We've got surface observations coming in from people on the ground. The forecaster analyses these and forms a picture in his head of what's going to happen. We've got information from the upper atmosphere showing us whether it's stable or unstable, and that's particularly useful for aviation forecasts and for the public weather forecasts that go out to the media and form the 4-day forecasts.
The staff take into consideration all the Australian and international synoptic data. The variables are then considered before a final decision's reached.
Not much in the north, I guess. It's only isolated in the north. Ahead of that change should move through.
Then it's over to the fax machines and out to hundreds of media outlets around Australia.
So tomorrow, mostly fine, around 20 degrees. Sunday, fine, and a little warmer.
This year, for the first time, the Bureau has added an ultraviolet radiation reading to their forecast. Now, this is really important because it tells us how intense the sun's rays are on any given day.
Australia's got the highest rate of skin cancer in the world, and we consulted with the Australian Cancer Society, medical authorities about this service before we did it, and they agreed that it would help to raise consciousness about the danger of UV in Australia and help people to plan their activities.
Now, I probably look a little bit stupid with all this garb on, but it's really important that I wear this anti-flash costume. When we fill the weather balloon, it's filled with hydrogen. Hydrogen is extremely flammable. One spark, or if it comes into contact with oxygen, this whole place could go up. So we've got to inflate the balloon quickly, get it outside, and then get it up into the atmosphere. Okay. Each week, weather balloons are released to gain the most accurate assessment of ozone density. They go up to a height of 35 kilometres, where they transmit information back to a central computer.
It's for southeastern Australia, maybe 1 or 2 showers on the New South Wales coast.
But not everybody's happy to get the forecast each evening from the weatherman.
That first cloud band, a lot of rain with that moving across south.
The Bureau takes 12 million calls a year, and some of them verge on the ridiculous.
It's quite common for people to ring up and say, I'm getting married on the 15th of 3 months' time. What's it going to be like in the afternoon? And we have to say, well, normally on the 15th of whatever month it is, it'll be like this, but that's not a forecast, that's just the average.
And if you think bad weather has the potential to ruin your weekend, spare a thought for farmers. who stand to lose millions of dollars if the weather information they're receiving isn't accurate. Now that's why the National Climate Centre is now working on a 3-month seasonal forecast, so country people can better manage a major drought or even a flood. And the Bureau's daily internet service will help even more.
Where most of the rainfall.
Weather forecasting will always have its sceptics. Most people probably struggle to accept that the Bureau's actually right around 75% of the time. They're the first to admit it's not an exact science. But each year as the technology improves, so too does the accuracy. And I guess that begs the question, where to next?
We hope in the near future to be able to extend our outlooks from 4 days, maybe up to 7.
Now, my reaction to that was, hey, get the 4-day right first before you go to the 7-day.
Yeah, look, the 7-day is not going to be right all the time. The 4-day is never going to be right all the time. 1 day is not going to be right all the time. And when we feel that the 7-day forecast